It's just after midnight in Medellín. July 2nd, 1994. Andrés Escobar steps out of a nightclub called El Indio and walks toward his car. He's been home from the United States for less than a week. He knows people are angry. He's been told to be careful, but he is 27 years old. It's a warm Colombian night. He doesn't believe what happened on a football pitch 10 days ago is going to get him killed. He is wrong. 6 shots hit him in quick succession, then 6 more. The gunman shouts something with each pull of the trigger. One word, repeated 12 times. Goal, 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 goal. Andrés Escobar, the most beloved defender in Colombian football history, dies in the parking lot of a nightclub in the city where he was born. This is the story of how a football match became a death sentence. To understand what happened to Andrés Escobar, you have to understand what Colombian football had become by 1994. Through the 1980s, the country's drug trade had saturated every layer of society. The cartels, Medellín, Cali, Norte del Valle, laundered billions of dollars through legitimate businesses. And one of the most useful vehicles for laundering money, projecting power, and buying public affection was football. Cartel bosses bought clubs outright. They funded stadiums, recruited foreign players, and inflated transfer fees to move dirty money across borders. The game at the top level of Colombian football was no longer purely a sport. It was a financial instrument. And like any financial instrument, the people who owned it expected returns. The consequences for players were invisible at first. Better wages, better facilities, newer boots. Then the other side of it emerged. Referees who made certain decisions, matches that ended at certain scores. And underneath all of it, a culture of violent expectation. The understanding that the men in the stands with the most money were not neutral observers. They had positions, and those positions had to be protected. By the early 1990s, the Colombian national team had grown into something genuinely extraordinary. Despite all of this, perhaps because of the talent flooding up from the streets and the investment pouring in from above, under coach Francisco Maturana, Colombia played a fluid, attacking game that the football world hadn't seen before from a South American nation. Carlos Valderrama, Freddy Rincon, Faustino Esprilla, a team of dazzling individuals functioning as a single electric unit. And at the back, steady and calm and deeply respected, was Andrés Escobar. He was born in Medellín in 1967. He came through the youth system at Atlético Nacional, the club partially bankrolled by the Medellín cartel under Pablo Escobar, no relation to Andrés. He was chosen for the national team at 20. He captained the side that beat Argentina 5-0 in Buenos Aires in September 1993. A result that sent the football world into shock and announced Colombia as serious contenders for the 1994 World Cup. After that result, Pelé named Colombia as his personal favorite to win the tournament. The entire country went to sleep believing they were going to America as one of the best teams on the planet. The pressure that came with that belief would destroy them. Colombia arrived in the United States for the 1994 World Cup, carrying expectations that no squad could have borne. Back home, the stakes had been inflated far beyond sport. Drug lords had bet enormous sums on Colombia's performance, not through bookmakers, but through the private, unregulated gambling networks that ran alongside the legitimate cartel operations. These weren't casual wagers. They were investments. And the men who made them did not accept losing gracefully. The group stage draw placed Colombia alongside Romania, Switzerland, and the United States. Romania was dangerous. Switzerland was organized. The United States were rank outsiders. The opening match against Romania in Pasadena ended 3-1 to Romania. Colombia were not just beaten, they were outplayed. The performance was shocking. Something was wrong. Players who had looked unstoppable months before looked uncertain, hesitant, afraid. There were rumors, persistent, impossible to fully verify, that certain players had received threats before the tournament, that someone had made it clear what the consequences of poor performance would be. Others said the opposite, that certain results had been arranged in advance, and that the team's erratic play was the result of internal confusion about what they were actually supposed to be doing. Whatever the truth, Colombia were now in a position where they could not afford to lose to the United States. June 22, 1994, Rose Bowl, Pasadena, Colombia versus the United States. The 34th minute, a long ball is driven into the Colombian penalty area. American forward John Harkes drives across from the right. Andrés Escobar reaches out his left leg to cut it off. The ball deflects off his boot and curves into his own net. Own goal. USA 1, Colombia 0. On the Colombian bench, the coaching staff stand in silence. In the stands, Colombian supporters drop their flags. Andrés Escobar stands at the edge of his penalty area, with his hands on his hips, staring at the space where the ball had just been. Colombia lost the match 2-1. They were eliminated from the World Cup in the group stage. In Medellín, the reaction was immediate and savage. Reports of violence filtered in almost before the full-time whistle had blown. Gunmen drove through neighborhoods firing into the air. At least 5 people were shot dead in Colombia that night, in incidents linked directly to the result. The police were overwhelmed. The government issued a statement urging calm. The Colombian squad flew home the next day. At the airport in Bogotá, some were met with sympathy. Others faced screaming crowds. Several players went directly into hiding. The coaching staff gave no press conference. Francisco Maturana, the manager, would later say that he feared for his life. Andrés Escobar gave a press conference. He didn't have to. He stood in front of the cameras and took responsibility. He apologized to Colombia. He said the team had tried their best. He said football was not worth a human life. That quote would become his epitaph. 10 days passed. Escobar stayed in Medellín. He went to training. He went out with friends. He wrote a column for El Tiempo, Colombia's biggest newspaper. In it, he said, "Life doesn't end here." He said he would keep working to show that these mistakes did not define him. He said he was looking forward to the next World Cup. That column was published on July 1st, 1994. He was dead within 48 hours. In the early hours of July 2nd, Escobar went to a nightclub in Medellín, El Indio. The club was known as a place where football met money, where the cartel and the sport had been blurred for years. Escobar left the club in the early hours of the morning. He was confronted in the car park. The men were associates of the Gallon brothers, narcos with deep ties to Colombian football. Words were exchanged. Humberto Castro Muñoz pulled out a weapon. He fired 12 times. With each shot, witnesses say Castro Muñoz shouted, "Goal." One for each own goal, some say. Others say it was a taunt, pure cruelty. Andrés Escobar died at the scene. He was 27 years old. Colombia was in shock. His death made international headlines. The footballing world mourned. Pelé said he had lost a friend. FIFA issued a statement. On July 6th, Andrés Escobar was buried in Medellín. 120,000 people came to say goodbye. In a city where violence was common, this death felt different, because Escobar had been innocent. He had made a mistake on a football pitch. That was all. Humberto Castro Muñoz was arrested within days. He was sentenced to 43 years. He served 11. Good behavior. The Gallon brothers, who ordered the killing, were never charged. Their cartel networks were eventually dismantled, but not until years later. And the men who pulled the trigger, the men who gave the order, they are still alive. Andrés Escobar is not. In 2002, A statue of Andrés Escobar was unveiled outside Estadio Atanasio Girardot in Medellín. He is frozen there, mid-stride, about to play. He is called El Caballero del Fútbol, the Knight of Football. Colombia returned to the World Cup in 1998. This time, nobody was killed. That phrase should not need to exist, but it does. Because in 1994, a man kicked a ball. It went the wrong way, and he died for it. Not because of who he was, but because of the world football had allowed itself to become. A world where a game could cost you everything. Andrés Escobar's last published words were these: "Whatever has happened, whatever may happen, we must not allow it to stop us from continuing." Life doesn't end here. He was wrong in the end. For him, it did. But he left those words anyway. And 30 years later, they still stand.